Hello and welcome back around the bonfire. It's the show that needed that brace so badly you would swear we broke our leg. It's John and Tim back with another episode, another bit of Chicago Fire football talk. Tim, it's good to be back in better spirits, I would say. I think last time we saw each other, we were crashing out. At least one of us was, and now here we are.
That was you. I think the rest of us were like, look, they're going to get this figured out. Greg is a smart coach. We have good players. Like, you know, the idea that you sign Robert Lewandowski and you start being worried about the striker position is wild. There were other legitimate fears, and I think there still are concerns, but like, this was going to happen. Like, Robert Lewandowski was going to score goals in MLS. Like, that was not really the question. And I think it feels better to have this, the win that the Fire got. Look, we'll talk about it, but it felt like a good win. Like, not just because it was a win, but because it felt like a good win.
No, you're right. Yeah, like you said, we'll talk about it more, but it did feel like a game you deserve to win. I think there's questions about what this looks like going forward, right? I can tell you after that first goal, the immediate thought in my head, I don't know if you felt similarly, was they better hang on. They better get another. They better not drop this game. They better not drop points. Otherwise, I think, it would be bad, right? It would be poor if Robert's performing at a really high level and the team can't
losing is bad. This is the kind of analysis that people come to us for because, like, really it takes all the work that we do to give that to the listeners.
I laugh sometimes when I think about, as we thank you guys every time you come here and join us and listen to the show. I laugh sometimes because it's like the number steadily ticks up in terms of people interested, people watching, people interacting. And sometimes you'll see people say like, oh, well, the analysts. And it was like, no, we just started doing this before other people. I think that's the only reason we're here. But hey, that's as good a reason as any, right?
What is more Chicago than having dibs?
I love that. Men in Red 97. We call dibs. Let's talk about the game that actually happened. Starting off early with a nice goal from Pep Biel. It was an assist off Idan Tuklamadi in the 18th minute. Chicago Fire responding immediately, though. Robert Lewandowski opening his MLS account with a goal off a really nice feed from Philip Sinkernagel, a ball off the noggin, as it were, sets him up. Beautiful play to just beat the outstretched arms of Christian Kalinja. Then second half, Robert Lewandowski adds another. Robin Lod adds the assist this time. Really, really great to see Robin back in a little bit of form. Not his best game still, but good to get on the score sheet, I suppose. So Robert Lewandowski not only with the winner, but with a brace. That ends it there. There was some scary moments late, some contested moments late, but Fire hold on 2-1. And look, overall, I think a good result, Tim, or you said it earlier. It did feel like a game they deserved to win.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good result, but it was also just the game that the Fire played, right? Like, there were some moments when I think Charlotte had pressure and they were able to get the ball in the box. They didn't really become chances, especially in the second half. I mean, one shot on target that game. Unfortunately, it meant Brady didn't get a chance to make a save because it went in the back of the net. But, like, the team still very much feels like they are working on things. And Greg said as much, like, multiple times after the game. Like, that was the message from pretty much everyone we talked to. But it also feels like they've made a lot of progress in figuring stuff out.
Yeah, look, and in some ways, I think it almost harkens back to what 2025 was of like, you're gonna score on us, but we just think we can outscore you for now. And hopefully the answer is for now, right? We'll talk about that, I think, a little later on.
I mean, look, one shot on, like, that's the thing, one shot on target against, like, the changes the Fire made were more defensive. I think that's really what powered the win a lot more than changes in the offense, although they're tied together.
Can I push back there? And this isn't where I wanted to start necessarily, but I like the conversation. I was not overly impressed with the defensive performance from the Fire. I mean, like, look, I thought Leo played obviously a lot better. Jack and Joel, I think, will only get better as time goes on, and this was the best we've seen them since the second half started. Gutman, you can talk about how much you want to blame him for that mistake, still making the same Andrew Gutman mistakes that we would expect him to, right? If that makes sense. I don't think the midfield was that much better defensively, certainly not in the final third. I don't know if that's fair. And frankly, I didn't think that was a great game from Chris Brady, that he could have and should have done better on that goal.
Yeah, look, it clearly wasn't perfect. And you're right. Like, and that's one thing that Greg identified after the game. He basically said that they were, I can try to find the exact quote, but like, basically they were letting too many like they were too easy to play against through zone 14, which, like, we've talked about. I've written about it multiple times. Like, everyone is
People
aware
with
that
eyes.
Yeah. Anyone that has seen a ball and on a soccer pitch move before could see that that's what was going on.
For reference, if you're not familiar, zone 14 is generally speaking the area at the top of the box between the center backs.
Exactly. And that still was true today. But look, for the confounding factors, right, of they, it was Joel's third game starting after a lengthy period really of, not playing in the World Cup, though he was in the squad for Canada, not getting really many opportunities earlier this season when both Jack and Bakazi were both healthy and available. He is figuring things out. And then after the game, Greg told us that on top of what looked like kind of an ankle injury in the match, but that Jack Elliott's been dealing with something with his knee. And like for two center backs where what Mbokazi brought that no one else brought was really good mobility. Like he could just eat up distance on the turf. So that helped. Greg said it, and I thought, wrong team. Greg said that he helps the Fire put out a lot of fires. And I'm like, no, he maybe in training, but not in games.
Yeah.
But we chug a little bit about that. But they've been making adaptation. They've been getting more comfortable playing together. I do have other concerns. I thought Djé D'Avilla had a good game for the first time in a long while. And I think putting this all together and tying it into that offensive thing, the Fire listed the lineup that some received said that it was a 4-4-2. That's what the Apple TV graphic showed on my rewatch. That's what the TV people were told. Other people, I can't exactly say who, but were given the lineup as a 4-3-3. And the funny thing is that neither one is really accurate because it really did play a lot more like a 4-2-3-1 than anything else. Sometimes it was like 4-4-2-ish, like Robin Lod wasn't completely free from like second striker duties. But it really was a lot more like a 4-2-3-1 where you had Djé D'Avilla and Anton Celetros as sort of like a double pivot, not quite a classical double pivot, but more of that than what we saw before. And Robin Lod was sort of like dropping further back, and Robert Lewandowski was the single striker up top with Bamba and Zinkernagel at the start as wingers. And look, it worked a lot better. I think that it helped Jay. I think that the game works a lot better for Djé D'Avilla when the role is more clearly defined, which being part of a 4-2-3-1 kind of midfield he is versus in a 4-4-2 where it's like, hey, you and Anton have like 9 different hats to wear, and you've got to figure out when to put them on and when to take them off rapidly to switch to make sure that we don't get scored on.
And I think the dangerous thing about that, at least as it stands now, right, is like that still happens in the final third, right? There were a lot of times in this game where you saw miscommunication from fullback to midfield in terms of who is stepping up to mark this man, who's falling off, who's kind of playing the more secondary role to follow the ball back through. Like, that is still where some of the issues were defensively. I agree, though. Jay stood out to me, in terms of like when it's not who he was or who we want him to be, but it is the closest he's been in a while. Like even going back before the break, probably there were a few games there where he just didn't look to be himself.
And look, that coincides with going to the 4-4-2, right? Like, and I don't think we had fully processed
100%.
that's what was going on. It was changing. The job description was changed under him. Early, when he first came to Chicago, there was a lot going on with him in his life and him like adapting to the team and new language and all that stuff. But like on top of that, he really just looked lost out there. Like he didn't understand the job he was being asked to do, and he didn't do a good job at it because he didn't know what it was. And then the team found its footing. He found his footing with the team, and he started looking a lot better. And I kind of wonder if that's what was going on here as well, where like the 4-4-2 was not really a job he understood, and now he's getting into a job that he understands. He was dropping back as kind of becoming the Fire's third central defender in certain moments. He would pick moments to go up high if Anton was further back, but like it was more often Jay that would be dropping in to make it kind of like a back three, and then that would enable the Fire to release both fullbacks and go up the pitch. It wasn't perfect. Like you said, the fullbacks weren't perfect. I thought I'm a little bit worried about Leo Barroso just because he's getting cooked way easier than I think he would have before the injury. And like that has me concerned.
I worry just a bit he's not at 100%. And that's why I think in the last episode we had, right, because we missed our Charlotte preview. I think it was why I was kind of hopeful Jonathan Dean would start, right, just to keep Leo a little bit fresher. That's the concern, right? I think I've been very, very high. You can find the videos still on our Instagram from earlier this year. I said Leo Barroso has like Serginho Dest level talent, right? Which is a guy who's contributing to at Ajax, right? One of the best clubs in the
In
Netherlands.
the
I was
Netherlands.
confused. I was confused with Denmark and the Netherlands.
Yeah.
The
One of the
Denmark.
best clubs in the Netherlands is also, I mean, yeah, that massive, that country that has like 3 or 4 clubs that people care about it most, and
I
really
mean, hey,
do
look,
great.
they are considered a power, right?
No,
Anyway,
they are like they're a European
yeah,
power, and like the market has changed a little bit, but they're still one of the biggest teams.
the powers in Europe: France, Germany, Ajax.
I mean, it's
Sorry,
like a
I'm just
lot of
having
like,
fun.
I mean, like, are we putting France in, or are we just putting PSG in there if we're talking club level, right?
Too real, too real. Anyway, don't love to see that, and more just from a guy who he just can't stay on the field, and he can't seem to stay at 100%. And look, is Leo Bajoso better than Jonathan Dean? Yes. Is 70% of Leo Bajoso better than 100% of Jonathan Dean? I don't know.
And it worked,
But
like it
anyway,
worked in this one, and we saw him involved. And one thing Greg did say is that a lot of like Charlotte's attacks largely came out the right. Like that's where Pep Biel was. That's where Luca De La Torre was. Not that you would ever have known that he was playing in this game, because I don't think his
I
name
did
came
not
up
know
once.
until after the game when he was with Greg, and I said, "Oh, he plays in Charlotte. That's interesting."
Someone in the press box was like, "Wait, Luca De La Torre is then?" Yeah, it's weird. Luca De La Torre in, Tim Ream not. Uh, it's a weird world we live in. But
Yeah,
at half, basically one of the adjustments the team made tactically was they realized that they were making it too easy to get to the weak side. So like that would be Barroso's side if the attacks are coming up the right. And so they kind of pulled Zink back a little bit and had him take on a little bit more coverage for Leo. And that is why I think it was like 0.15 or something like that XG for Charlotte in the second half.
yeah. I also do think this team kind of works a little better when they control the game, and once you have that lead, it makes things a lot easier to control. Granted, that was 20 minutes into the second half, but
This
still,
another one of those things that's like, dude, all you have to do is get ahead. And like, look, Zink told us exactly
well,
the same thing. Yeah, no, it's like he's like, look, when like you're when you get ahead, your shoulders can drop a little bit. Everything starts feeling more comfortable because you don't feel like you got to force it. And like that's
no,
exactly
yeah,
what they needed. And like
you have like a license to play your game, right?
and Robert Lewandowski, I mean, was so close to. I mean, he had other good chances. He could have had 2 more goals. You know,
Oh yeah, 100%. That is the one thing, and I loved that he did it on the first goal. And I want to circle back to the defense before we go on, but I do want to say this because it's top of my head. I loved on that first goal how decisive he was. He hasn't shown that before that moment. He has been a little too let me dribble out and find another move. And well, I get that to a certain extent. Robert, you are one of the greatest strikers ever. Just shoot the ball. Like nobody's going to be like, "Hey man, should have dribbled out." Like no. Just shoot. Like that's okay.
and that's what he did. Just to like talk about that first goal for a second. First goal from outside the box the Flyers scored this year. I when
Crazy.
I was doing, like getting back into it, like research, after with the World Cup break ending, I was like, the Fire haven't scored a goal from outside the box this year. I'm like, that's wild. One was like on the like if it was a 6 inches further back, it would have been outside. But technically no, until that one. But it's the confidence that Lewandowski had with it of like 3 touches, he moves the ball laterally across a little bit to center it, and he doesn't worry about getting a ton of power on the shot. It's not like I'm going to blast it past them. He knows that he's got to get the shot off quicker rather than more with more power on it because the defenders are screening him or screening Kalina a little bit, and so he can go like center of the box. He can shoot either direction, like he can go to either corner, and so Kalina can't move, and none of the defenders are really taking any of those angles away yet. And Kalina can't necessarily see where it's going until a little bit later. And so he takes the shot then rather than trying to get more power on it. And like that's the kind of poise that you expect from Robert Lewandowski.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, and I don't. Every time I see him, I want to call him his brother's name. Morrison. I assume they're brothers. I actually don't know they are. Morrison Ajamong. Like he was there. He was in the right spot. He just got megged. Like he overextends his leg. Instead of blocking the kick, it goes right between his legs. Like he did his best. No, but it was to your point there, Tim, talking about the way he moved the ball. Like you knew the second he touched the ball, he was taking the shot. It was eerily similar to the play with Jonathan Dean last week, or was that last midweek? No, but like it was like a ball that goes in a little too high, headed back to him. The difference is this time, A, better angle, of course, but B, he let it rip, right? And I think that was important. And I think you saw that in the second half too, right? He's comfortable. He got that first goal monkey off his back. And now it's just okay. I get to play my game. I get to be who I am. Did you notice that, or was that just me? I feel like there was a physical difference.
You know, I didn't notice it. And somebody
Fair.
asked when we talked to Robert after, somebody asked him, does it feel like pressure is off you, now that you have your first goal? And I was thinking, dude, Robert Lewandowski doesn't feel pressure to like to score a goal. Like, did he feel pressure not scoring goal? Like, he was going to score goals, and I think he knew it. Like, he's made it 2 games without scoring in the past. It's going to happen again in his career, but he just knows that goals are going to come. The same way that your accountant knows that they can add 2 numbers together.
But doesn't it mean, I don't want to say it means more. Isn't there maybe a bit of added pressure when you're not just a big signing at a big club, but you're the biggest signing maybe ever, right? You're getting paid $18 million a year. They spent months, if not years, trying to get you to come here. You're finally here. It's your first game at home. Like, I don't know.
Look,
He can
I
say
think
whatever he
that
wants, but
there's got to be a little bit of that. I think it comes down to something that the big concern with big name signings in MLS isn't that if things aren't going right, that they will feel the pressure. The concern is that they just don't care. Like, they don't care that they are brought
yeah.
in to be the guy. And so if he was feeling that a little bit, then that's good. I just think that he knew he was getting in the right place. And he's also been, like, frankly, like, a little bit too forthright almost with saying that he wasn't really anywhere near full fitness. And he's like, I didn't get a preseason. I wasn't near full fitness. I was on a break. I show up and, like, here I am playing is what he said in not quite as many words, because he uses more words than I do, which is saying a lot. But and like, look, I think that that's honesty from him, and I think a little bit of it is him just kind of deflecting whatever criticism could have been his way.
And but it is fair too, right? We talked about it, maybe not as much as we should have, but this idea of like no preseason, right? No no anything. He rolled up, played a couple games, and now, man, like, look, we've been critical of the moves in a lot of facets. I think a lot of those are still valid, right? Just in terms of what the rest of this roster looks like and the work you need to do. That said, if this is 85% of Robert Lewandowski, then you made the right call, even if it did cost you Hugo Kuipers.
And, like, I'm not even sure that it's 85% of him, to be honest. And it's
Yeah,
not just from, like, him and his capability, but also from how the team is playing with him. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like
100%.
one of the differences between the, like, headed ball to Robert Lewandowski this time and the headed ball to him last time is that it just felt like there was an awareness of the space Lewandowski would be in a little bit quicker, and that's going to continue to get better.
Can I throw something out there too? I'm gonna pour a little bit of cold water on this, and then we can be positive again. I don't know that this Charlotte defense is like, boy, you know. I mean, like, if you look at the back line, frick, what's his name? Henry Kessler. I want to say Walker Kessler because of the center. Morris Ajimang, who we mentioned before, the only guy I think under 30 in like the back line in the midfield. Maybe Luca De La Torre is under 32. Like, it's a lot of older guys. It's a lot of not very quick guys, which is something the Fire do tend to do pretty well against. And it's just a bunch of guys who, like, I don't want to be like they're not good, but like, this is not, in terms of MLS back lines, anything special.
It's nothing. Okay, look, I don't know. Like, if you look at most statistics, they are somewhere between 12th and like 18th, both offensively and
Yeah,
defensively, and they have been basically the entire time they're in the league. So no, this was not beating a team. This was not like beating Vancouver, where they just weren't allowing goals for that stretch, or and like the difference. The part of the reason that they have been able to push themselves higher than that conversation is, I don't know what happens. Like, the planets align in some way, and Christian Kalina just starts, like, enters beast mode, and like nothing can get past him. Like, he's playing like a World Cup winning goalkeeper, and then the rest of the time he's just this like normal MLS goalie. And I was a little afraid that first goal with the tie game, like, what if that like that's what makes him enter that beast mode? Didn't happen,
yeah.
right? Like, it's like, I'm awakened. Robert Lewandowski scored on me. I can't let that happen again. didn't happen.
Somebody clip saying I'm awakened, please. Colin, Logan, one of you.
Like, look, they're a perfectly average MLS team. Like they have a very good chance of making the playoffs. I think I've got them at, something around like the 80% threshold of making the playoffs. Like, they're not the worst team you're going to face. They're not the best. So and also like they sold underperforming, got like allowed the loan to expire on Wilfried Zaha, and they signed a new guy to replace him, and he's not in yet. So like, sure.
Can I do a quick thought experiment? 5 teams. I want you to tell me the 2 that are out of the playoffs. Charlotte, Red Bull, DC United, Orlando, and Columbus.
Okay, so Columbus are out of the playoffs, right?
Right now, Columbus and Orlando are on
out.
20 points.
Yep, they're both out.
Charlotte and
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm asking who you think at the end of the year.
End of the year. I thought you were like quizzing me on the standings right
now.
No. So wait, it was basically what was it, like 7 to 10 or 7 to 11, whatever that is.
Yeah.
That are in these standings now. Okay, let me pull that up.
And 5 points separate Charlotte and New York Red Bull are 25, DC's on 23, Orlando and Columbus on 20.
I think Orlando's going to push their way in. With Anton Griezmann, they've looked very good. Like, they've looked very, very good. Columbus are kind of an X factor. I feel like the Red Bulls, it's so many kids that they're playing, and like who knows? Like, the thing with the Red Bulls is like they always could reinforce significantly, and then they don't, and like that's just the life of it. So I think that they're probably going to drop out. And I honestly I just DC United are better than I thought they'd be. That doesn't mean that I think that they're good. Like, I know that they had a draw against Nashville, but like I'm still not convinced that they're going to be there.
So let me just my thinking, and then we'll move on to the team we actually cover. I look at those 5 teams. I think Columbus and Orlando are both going to make it. I think Laurent Courtois is a good coach. They'll figure it out.
I think he is too. I just some of the things around that, and like they have been so snake bit with just getting the DP goal scorer that they had into the lineup and healthy. Like, it just has been
not
insane.
Even snake bit. They're just selling everybody, man.
Well, no, I mean, they signed a guy and then he got hurt,
I know,
and then he was better at the beginning of the season, and they got hurt and ended his season. So like, it's like, what can they do? Like, it just is terrible luck.
Anyway, I think they'll both get in. I think Red Bull probably fall out. I just don't think that's going to be sustainable this year, at least. And I look at DC United and Charlotte, and I'm like, I would probably take DC. Like, just in terms of like who's on the team. I mean, Pep Biel, I guess. Like, would I rather have Pep Biel or Ty Baribo? Probably Ty Baribo. And I know they're not perfectly analogous. I'm just kind of best player kind of vibes. Do I want Now, did Sean go to Toronto, or is Sean Johnson still in DC? He's in Toronto now, right? Yeah, he's in Toronto. Anyway, I just think it's interesting. And I think we could have a very different opinion of this team in 2 months than we do today. And I think it's possible they're worse than we think they are. So just that was my little bit of cold water. That's all.
It is. No, look, it is. It's still, they're not the word. Like, there's not a lot of daylight.
They're not a bad team. No.
Right.
They're not
like
Toronto or Philly or Montreal.
And now Philly, like, this is the crazy thing about MLS. Like, now Philly are playing like a team that could somehow push themselves into that conversation despite having like basically no points through the first half of the season.
Only 7 points off the bottom. That's what's crazy.
And
7 points off the play.
And I honestly think that this is something that we didn't talk. We mentioned it last time. We didn't talk enough about. I think that was part of Greg's thinking with bringing Lewandowski in. That Hugo's departure wasn't planned, but it's a forgiving format, right? And in some ways, look, do you want to win the league? Sure. Like, you want to get the supporter shield? Sure. Was that likely in the cards for the Fire this year? No. And I think Greg kind of knew that. And does it really matter if you finish 5th versus 6th, or if you finish 3rd versus 4th, or like, having that extra home game is useful, but if you just win one game on the road, then that takes care of things in that first round. And then after that, it is what it is. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it. It's a forgiving format.
Yeah, look, the only thing I don't love is now you are playing Nashville in round 2 if the results hold, right? If everything stays exactly the same, you're playing Nashville in round 2, which
and I guess what I'm saying is that you know for a fact that everything's not going to stay. Like, that's the one thing you can guarantee,
of course,
with MLS.
Well, yeah. Look, is everything going to hold? No, of course not. Could the Fire end 4th? Like, absolutely. I don't think that would be crazy to think. I
I
think they'll
mean, I don't think
probably
that.
in third.
Yeah, because I think New England are gonna. I mean, look, I love Marko Mitrovic. I love what he's been able to do with the Revs this quickly, but like, I just don't. I just don't see them being able to sustain that. I think that they're. But look, they're like they've been winning the games that they're supposed to win, and then they get a draw against CF Montreal, and so
Well,
again,
let's
you know,
let's hammer in that sustainability idea for a second, because that was kind of the one thing I was thinking, certainly back half of this game. And of course, game state, things are different when there's pressure on you, right? Trying to hold a lead. I walked away from this game thinking that was a good win. The team needed it, and they're heading in the right direction. But I didn't feel like that was a sustainable way to go out and win games week in, week out. Do you feel like it's a fair assessment?
I mean, there's
As
two
in,
ways I want to
let
answer that
me
question.
maybe be more specific just to help. As in, you still need to make at least one major change to that 11. Whether that's going to a true 4-3-3 or a true 4-2-3-1, or signing another midfielder and dropping Robin Lod, perhaps, you know?
I think that if the Fire felt confident that right now they had the personnel to be doing those things, they would. I mean, and the one change you're talking about is getting Mbokazi healthy, which I think we don't have great visibility into what.
No,
I
yeah,
mean,
go ahead.
I
Sorry,
hear
I'm
what you're
just
saying.
thinking.
So,
No,
look,
no, you're
is it
good.
a sustainable way to
Finish your
get
thought.
like if the Fire played just skipping forward to answering the question, like if the Fire played that way for the rest of their season, they would win some games and they lose some games and they probably would end up sinking far, like not super far, but like they would be more of like a sixth, seventh place team at best in the standings. And like that's kind of how I feel about it. Now, if you mean play the way that they did with like I think they had the right ideas. I think that they weren't perfect with the execution. And I think that they are going to continue to work on that execution. Right. So like I think that if you keep on hammering that, I don't think that 4-2-3-1 is a way that you're going to win MLS Cup. I think it is a way that you can hang in the standings. And then you're maybe trusting that like Robert Lewandowski will be a difference maker. The Fire are trying to bring in another player. Like they're like they've been pretty open about trying to bring the third DP. Like they thought that they had brought in a third DP, and they are. Greg has talked about like it was a double negative, but he's like, I wouldn't not expect us not to make a unsigning or something like that. But what he meant is like, I would expect us to make a signing.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
Can I?
yep,
Sorry, finish your thought, and then I'll go.
I just, again, like everyone has been saying we have to figure this out. Like literally everyone we talked to was like, we're still figuring this out. And I think that it's going to keep on getting better. I don't think that we are close to a ceiling that's going to win. I don't think that, like, I'm not really concerned about things getting radically worse, barring something falling off the rails, which it can happen, right? Like the Fire have
Sure.
no depth at several key positions. Like Robin Lod, like is not great. He's not perfect in the position that he's playing. It's he's hasn't looked good all year. He's been asked to play a bunch of jobs that are not his best job all year as well. And like, I don't know. And like, if the Fire lose one center back and Jack Elliott's not 100% right now, like it makes it radically harder, I think, for the team just to have the personnel to see out results.
Yeah, look, I think to start on the center back piece, I think that's important. You mentioned the one big change could be getting Mbokazi back. I think as time goes on, this team, I don't want to say they won't miss him, and I don't want to say the team will be better without him, because I don't think that's true. I think as time goes on, this team will miss him less and less, because what you lose in the ability to put out fires, you gain in you have two incredibly smart, very, not as talented, but smart and veteran guys in the back line who I think will work well together. Jack Elliott goes back to playing his natural position as a left center back. Joel Waterman steps in, and I don't think Joel is as good as TLB, of course. And smart isn't the right word. I think
They can find
experienced
ways
is.
to adapt, right? And like we started to
Yeah,
see
and
some
I,
of
I
that,
think
right?
if
Like
you're asking me, like, who do I want filling in, Joel Waterman is the type of guy. And I think what you lose in the athleticism and the making up for mistakes is, like, I think you could see less mistakes, which lets everybody else play a little cleaner. To that end, like, dude, I got to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see TLB again this year. Like, I'm not, I know, and, just purely on what Greg has said, if that sounds to me like they said thigh, that sounds like a hamstring. And if that's a hamstring, he's done. Like, it's just such a difficult injury to come back from. I'm
What
speculating purely, by the way.
what Greg was saying seemed to indicate that he would be back this year. Now, obviously, things change,
Sure.
and we don't know when. And like you say that now, I I will say though, look, right now as it stands, Jack Elliott, if he had gotten a yellow, which I mean, man, Freeman was just, I don't even know what he was doing. I'm pretty sure that Robert Lewandowski got a yellow just so that he could write down Robert Lewandowski on his card before walking out the building. I,
Honestly,
I mean,
I would probably do that.
yeah, uh, right? No, like it felt very like the discipline didn't feel. It didn't feel fairly applied throughout the game. It felt utterly random with who's getting cards and who wasn't, and that's frustrating to watch from any perspective. But if it had been Jack Elliott that had gotten a yellow and not Joel, Jack Elliott would be suspended for the Fire's next league game because he's one caution away. And like that, those are the margins we're talking about. And you've got Sam Rogers, who he played 76 minutes when Jack Elliott wasn't ready. It against the Dynamo in the season opener, and he has not played for the Fire since.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Rogers, God love him, looked like the worst of the two center backs on the field for Fire 2 today. Right. And I didn't watch the whole game. I watched like 35 minutes of it, but still, that's not.
Well, and that's what
exactly a
happens when
ringing
guys don't play,
endorsement.
right? Like, I think that he can be an
sure,
MLS backup. I don't
that.
think that you feel comfortable. And again, like Jack Elliott also has some kind of an issue he's dealing with his knee. Does that get worse? Does he have to actually miss time for? Like, I don't have answers to these things, but it just shows the margins. And like, and Djé, I think with TLB and just with that mobility, it's not just the positioning, because I get what your point about what Jack and Joel can develop in terms of chemistry. We started seeing that down the stretch last year, but without Mbakazi's mobility, it puts more pressure on Djé to consistently be having good games. And Djé D'Avilla has
100%.
had great games for the Fire, and he's had very not great games. Like there's not a lot in that middle. And so I don't have a ton of confidence. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
he's the only guy. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Okay.
No, I'm right.
Yeah, it just eats in the margins, right? Like that's, I think, what we're circling around is like there's thinner margins than I think we felt before with the squad. And they weren't great. Like the Fire haven't had a attacking midfielder they believed in all year. Because they just haven't. Like Andre Franco's out. He's back in Chicago. He was at Soldier Field for this one, but he's not going to be playing next week or anything.
And that's, I think, maybe to tie a bow on the TLB timeline of it. It's like, that's my concern, is everybody and their mother thought Andre Franco was going to be back playing by the World Cup break, after the World Cup break. He's at the time I was like, guys, don't be surprised if he's not back until October. And now he's just starting field work and he's just getting back to Chicago, which is
and so
truly fine. Like get recovered, be healthy. We want you here long term. Like,
and honestly, when you see guys that come back, guys that rush back typically look very bad, and sometimes for a much longer time. So you don't want to see that. But yeah, I mean, I think that right now the Fire ceiling is lower than it was a couple of weeks ago, just because of that change. And they can do things for that, but just to bring this to where the Fire's roster is, like if the Fire are hunting for a third DP, that will occupy the last senior international or senior slot on the Fire's roster. They'd also need the international slot. I'm not as worried about that because they become cheaper as time goes on.
don't they still have one open?
They have one open because Andre Franco is out of the lineup. So if Andre Franco gets into the lineup,
TLB.
yeah. So you can't have both of them rostered to play, and the Fire have to be roster compliant by. So like for now,
I just mean to say they don't need to do it. They don't need to get the slot today. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, they don't have to get the slot today, and that's part of why they put him on that short-term injury list, which just means like 6 games or more you've got to miss. Like you're not allowed to return, so you have to be confident a guy's going to be out that long. Now, where it leaves the Fire though is it's more the senior slot you're worried about, right? Like they can bring in that DP, and anything else, like if they want a full house at the end of the season, they have to either put someone on the season-ending injury list or something, because they have to be able to make a move, to do that. And so I would expect that the way that you handle it is someone departs on loan or a sale.
Yeah. we've talked to death about who some of those guys might be, I guess.
Right, exactly. I'm just
frankly, a lot of them start. No, I'm just making a point. Like a lot of them started for Fire 2 today. What, 9 of the 11 outfielders?
And we'll talk about
10?
this when we probably for the episode that's going to come out on Wednesday. When we're doing the Leagues Cup preview, one thing Greg did mention is that he's like, look, the team hasn't rotated a lot. I'm like, oh, you're saying that out loud. That's
What?
good. Yeah. Hadn't noticed that it was the same people all the time, but that we would see a lot more of that with the Leagues Cup. And I think that you've got to, right? Because the Fire play Thursday, then Sunday, then Tuesday, or something like that. I don't know. I should probably know the schedule by now. I hate talking about like media stuff with listeners because who cares? Like nobody should care. I got 4 different emails about getting press credentials because they're separate for the Leagues Cup because it's a completely separate competition from people that are not, normal MLS. No way they could just do that. 4 separate emails about my credential application. One on like Friday night that said I am in English, then a second one in Spanish that said I was in Spanish, and then one 2 minutes after that in English that said I wasn't approved, and then one the next morning in English and Spanish that says I was approved and we're sorry for the confusion. Apparently other people had like that thing reversed, including Joe Chats, who, like the team hires to do radio stuff. So it doesn't make any sense that he wouldn't get credentialed for it. And so now it's just, hey, like whatever system they were trying to use apparently didn't work very well. And there's coming up with backup plans. So it's part of the chaos around the Leagues Cup is that.
Hey, you know what, Tim? At least all the games are at SeatGeek, right?
Dude, you know that like Simpsons gif of like the grandpa like walks in to the door and like puts his hat up and like puts his cane up and then he just like turns around and walks right back out the door. It's entirely possible that Robert Lewandowski does that when he sees SeatGeek.
Honestly, if it came out tomorrow that Robert Lewandowski was refusing to play at SeatGeek Stadium, I think I would be a vocal defender of Robert Lewandowski.
Look, man, what is he gonna complain about the pitch quality? Like after what the Fire played on for their past 2 games, because Yankee Stadium in some ways looked worse. It's just everyone's used to it. Like he's rolling with it. Like to his credit, like he's not complaining. He's just rolling with it, and so like, it's not going to be worse. Sorry, what?
You want to win a trophy, you'll probably need to play on that field a little bit more too, to be honest.
They are going to returf it for the Bears.
No, I'm talking about SeatGeek.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and look, SeatGeek is not. I think that it could actually be decent because it, like Fire 2, it's looked okay. Like it's been raining, it hasn't been too hot. Like the biggest issue that you've got is that they don't cut it very short, so it's like playing AYSO level pitches sometimes. But hey, what can you do?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the Hounds are doing a better job of maintaining it, and maybe longer grass is better for rugby. I don't know.
The issue, I think the issue is it's the Village of Bridgeview as the operator that are maintaining it or not. And I was completely wrong, by the way. It is the games are the 6th, which is Thursday, the 9th, which is Sunday, and then the 13th, which is all the way back to Thursday. So
interesting.
It's the group. I mean, they've got games every day starting Tuesday. So like, it's the group stages. Like, we're gonna hit you with a ton of soccer. Remember how you like the World Cup?
Fun.
This isn't very much like that, but we'll just make that comparison anyways because we're gonna take it from here.
Tim, since you said that, can I do a quick rant?
Please.
I don't know who does the scheduling for MLS. I don't know if it's Don Garber or Nelson Rodriguez or some other unnamed executive. The NFL is right there. Like, you can have a lot of opinions about Roger Goodell and what they do over there. They gave you a blueprint for exactly how to run your TV product, and you still shit the bed. I'm sorry, Austin. It's so bad that at 6:30 I have to turn on Apple TV and realize I can't watch any other game except the Fire. Like it sucks. I would sit like NFL season. I will sit on my couch from noon to 10 o'clock at night and watch as much football as I possibly can. I can't do that with MLS because they have every game kickoff at the exact same time. It makes no sense. It's the stupidest thing in the world, and it drives me up a wall.
They had a West Coast game starting in Vancouver, so indoors, climate controlled. It's not like it's hot in Vancouver. Like it's not like playing outside in Charlotte in this time of year when you can't kick off at 1 p.m. or whatever because it's going to be 2,000 degrees. and they made it kick off at 6:30 Eastern, the same as every other thing. Like, this is a marquee matchup. You could give it its own time slot. You could start it 2 hours earlier. Like, it really doesn't matter, and they didn't do any of those things. And it's I'm with you. I also just wish there were a couple games. Like, why every Friday? I just wish I could watch a couple MLS games. I would watch.
It makes no sense.
I would just put it on because it's there. Like, I would watch. I mean, what, like Montreal play Philly, like, when before either of them showed signs of life.
Did you know Timbers and Sounders played this weekend? Because I didn't until today. Because it was on at the same time. I couldn't watch it. Like,
man, Brian Schmetzer was so upset about that tifo. In the press conference afterwards, he was picking apart that he said he didn't feel pressure, with the team's losing streak, but then he said something about, like, picked apart like the tifo that Portland had, which was I mean, they do horror movie themes every time they play Seattle, and for some reason, something about it struck him the wrong way. I don't know. Seemed a little ridiculous.
I thought it was cool. I liked it.
I thought it was cool too. I thought it's a perfectly executed tifo, but like, that's what, Timbers Army does all the time. You heard it here?
The official stance of the Bonfire. Brian Schmetzer, you're a nerd. Anyway, you got nerded. This has gone a little bit off the rails. Thanks for being here, everybody. Tim, I think before we go, I feel like this is a good place to wrap. Do we want to pick man of the match here? I think you might have an obvious answer, but I'll let you go first if you'd like to take it.
I mean, I think that it's got to be the one that was named man of the match, right?
Yeah,
in the stadium.
Again, I said this pregame, and I'm going to tell you now. I'm going to say it again because I think it's funny. MLS is not beating the rigged league allegations. You happen to tell me the most Polish guy in the world just happens to be giving out man of the match award the night the second most Polish guy in the world wins the man of the match award? Come on.
He's also the Robert Lewandowski also became the second Chicago Polish player that scored 2 goals in their home debut for the Chicago Fire. After Tomasz Frankowski in 2008.
Shout out. I don't remember who posted it. I don't remember if they posted it on their main account or a different one, but great piece of Fire trivia on the timeline today, Tim. I don't know if you saw this.
That was, I tweeted it. I mean, we were informed it in the press box, but we were informed.
Wait, really? They told you in the press box? We figured it out in the group chat. I didn't realize they told you guys. Wait, what do you think I'm talking about?
The 4 players that have scored 2 goals in their home debut.
No, very different. Okay. Can you name the 2 players who have played for Chicago Fire 2 and started a game in the UEFA Champions League?
Robert Lewandowski and Jean Duran.
No, Chicago Fire 2.
Oh, no, yeah, John Duran played a couple games for Chicago Fire 2.
Did Robert Lewandowski play for Fire 2?
No, he did not.
So John Duran is one.
Literally no idea on the second one.
I'm now blanking on his first name, but Cohen, backup keeper, he started today.
Josh Cohen, obviously.
Cohen.
Yeah. I completely blanked that he was starting for Fire 2 in this one, even though I saw it. I'm like, that's okay. So I think that says something about that rotation. Yeah.
Nightmare blunt rotation. Josh Cohen, John Duran. That could be fun. Josh seems like a nice guy.
Josh is a nice guy. Don't put him in the same category as John Duran, who,
all right,
despite
Tim,
many talents, not that. Robert Lewandowski has to be the man in the match.
Interesting. Because I'm going to disagree with you. It should be Philip Zinkernagel. That was an outstanding performance from Phil. Look at his heat map. You'll forget that he played right wing. He was on the left with Bamba so often and so much. He was outstanding and deserves a lot of credit for the performance.
And that's one thing he talked about afterwards is the way that his role was set up. He likes being able to move around and occupy different pockets of space. I mean, I think that they both do it. I think that Robert Lewandowski, man of the match, because of what it sort of means for the fan base, as well as maybe the squad in terms of like helping to establish who Lewandowski can be. By the way, Frank Klopas, the first Fire player to score 2 goals in his Chicago Fire home debut.
That's some good company. Good company for Robert Lewandowski. Yeah, I think to that end, Tim, the interesting thing there, and I meant to mention it earlier, I'll just bring it up now. There's this concept in like American football. You'll hear Ben Johnson talk about it for the Bears. Like, we want to do the same thing in 20 different ways, right? We run the same concepts out of 20 different formations, 20 different sets. And I think that when this team is really good, that's what they're doing in the attacking third. They have this incredible multiplicity to be able to do the same thing from 15 different angles. And you see that on set pieces last year. You see it more from the run of play this year. But I think when you see this team doing that, that's when you know they're dangerous. I just thought that was interesting.
No. Yeah. And I think that that's exactly what you're hoping becomes the norm, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. And maybe another stud midfielder will do that. But we'll have to wait and see. Tim, anything you want to get to before we wrap?
Yeah. So people that have visited the website may know this, and we'll put out a link to this probably on the day that this is out. We are starting a newsletter. It's going to run every Monday, not the day that this comes out, because that would make too much sense. We're going to start August 10th, and we're basically going to have some original content, some analysis, as well as like a roundup to make sure that you don't miss, anything from us. Over time, it has gotten harder to predictably be findable based on changes to search algorithms, changes to the way that people use social media, changes to the algorithms there. And this lets us, always make sure that we can be in touch. And I think over time, we'll start having some more exclusive content for people that are subscribing to the newsletter. It's completely free. We will not sell your email to anyone. It's just going to be one email a week in your inbox Monday mornings.
Let's be clear. Tim won't sell your email to anyone. Me, I might. No, I kid. We care very much about data privacy. That was a joke. That was a joke. Tim doesn't like it, but it was a joke. Anyway, no. To that end, though, it is a great way to keep in touch. It's also just, frankly, if nothing else, if you're somebody who works in an office for a living, you can send it to your work email. Maybe just read it at your desk. I don't know, right? It's not gonna be anything crazy. You're at the function. Nobody's texting you, but you need to look at your phone. Boom, perfect time. You whip out the hotline. Man in Red 97 newsletter. You read that for a little bit. The support we've received on everything we do is incredible. So if that could continue, if you like what we do, it's an easy and completely free way to support us. It goes, I think, a much longer way than people realize. So keep an eye out for that. We'll have more info also on or maybe just the same info again when we talk Necaxa here in a few days for Leagues Cup preview. I think that's a good place to wrap up. As always, stay tuned to the website, menofred97.com. That's where you can stay tuned, or it's where you can find all the latest and greatest news, updates, and analysis on all things Chicago Fire football. You can stay tuned to the socials, menofred97, anywhere and everywhere that matters. We'll keep you updated, we'll keep you informed, and we'll keep you on the. And as always, wherever you listen to this, if you could give us a like, a subscribe, a share, a rate, if they have the whole stars system, that goes a long way. If you could then go to youtube.com/Men in Red 97, right? Yeah, that's it. Or just search Men in Red 97 on YouTube. Well, you guys do MIR 97 Media sometimes. It's weird.
I'm
if you go
trying to move us away from that.
Go track us down on YouTube. You can listen there. You can watch there. We do the full video podcast if you haven't seen it before. You can also engage in the comments. Sometimes it's just people calling me stupid. Sometimes it's interesting thoughts and analysis from other folks. But it goes a long way. If you could subscribe specifically on YouTube, it would be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you so much for being here. It means the world to have you listen in. For Tim, for our illustrious producer, Austin, I'm John. Thank you so much for joining us around the bonfire. And come on, you Men in Red.